Hello!
Sorry, I wasn't ready.
Singing in the rain, what a glorious feeling.
What's up, guys? Welcome to this week's McInnes Marketing Minute. I estimate we have 8.5 minutes before it starts tipping it down here, which in code for all of you Canadians out there means before it starts pouring down with rain. So Jay, what are we talking about today?
It's already started raining. Today we are discussing the May 2019 market numbers. This is a traditional topic which we've kind of used to do a lot and then we pulled away from, and now we're going back because there's some interesting happenings in May that kind of replenish what we've been saying with some validity, and it's a hot topic of obviously what direction the market's been going in, and it's just some reinforcement on what's been happening.
Yeah, so May's always an interesting month in Vancouver real estate just because it shows actually quite a spike in activity, and that stayed true this year as well. There were quite a few more sales this month versus, or sorry, I should say last month now. There were quite a lot more sales in May versus April, which tends to be the case with Vancouver real estate, but even when it's a correction, that still is the case, as it turns out, just on a reduced numbers amount. So looking at some sexy statistics here, on the east side, in April, 149 condos sold, and then in May, that number was 202. So that's an increase of 35.6%. Then if we look at the houses, in April, 66 homes sold. In May, 124 homes sold. So that's an increase of 87.9%. So that's a huge distance there. And you want to do west side?
I'm going to do west side.
West side!
West side! So, that's getting cut. So, April, we had in the condo market 278 condos sold. And in May, that number jumped to 374. And that's a 34.5% increase in activity. That's obviously sales numbers, not pricing we're talking about, but the velocity of the market here. West Side houses, April 63 sales and May 86 sales, which is a 36.5% increase month over month in activity. Mm-hmm. So as Ben said before, the interesting thing is, and we're kind of just waiting on what these numbers would be to see if it was going to stay the same. The market trend of the year has stayed the same. There are kind of traditional peaks and troughs throughout the calendar year, and those are staying the same. It's just that obviously a lighter load, if you will, by way of actual units sold, and pricing is different, but the trend has kept up.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense as well. A lot of people know that springtime is one of the best times and one of the most busiest times to buy. So all of that kind of hype looking and starting to look between March and April, decisions and triggers actually start getting pulled in May. So the numbers make sense. I mean, in terms of listings available on the market, everything was pretty much the same, almost like bang on, to be honest, other than Westside condos. They saw a decrease of just 10% in what's available for condos and townhouses on the west side. So overall, that's obviously April versus May this year. When you have a look at what those figures look like this time last year, so probably be accurate in saying this time last year we were probably a few 2-3 months maybe into the correction,
change, yeah,
if you will, into the change. As a blended rate, we're down about 8.8%. So, and that's
velocity.
That's just in terms in sales activity now versus then a year ago. So, I mean, and if you go by neighborhood specific, that goes from anywhere from 5.5% down to 12% down. So that's a blended rate of 8.8% down from last year. So it's interesting because we're still following the same trend through the correction. However, it's just on reduced amounts. So regardless of whether the market was doing hot or whether it's going through a correction, it still followed the same suit as well. So,
and I think the most important thing to this is that things are, of course, still selling, clearly. Yes, of course, they're at reduced numbers. And of course, the pricing to this time last year is adjusted, but there are still buyers out there buying. There's still sellers out there selling, and it all comes back to, I think, the reality of pricing your property accurately to today's market, and you will attract today's buyers.
Yeah, so unfortunately, not to burst anyone's bubble here, particularly you sellers, these figures alone would suggest that the market's on the rise and it's going back up again. However, we should tell you, although this is the trend in May, the following trend as we go into summer are the amount of listings reduce on the market and the amount of sales also reduce as well in that. And if we're following trend as we have been this year, I would envision the same thing would happen again this year. Of course, we don't have a crystal ball, but we're envisioning the same thing will happen again this year. So those of you who are hoping, oh great, I'll wait a couple of months, the market's going to be hot again and all is well, unfortunately, we're going to burst that bubble for you.
Yeah, I don't believe that's the case. I believe, as Ben said, we're going to follow the trend and things are going to start to soften off again. And that's always a double-edged sword. If you're going to market, again, if you're listening to the market price-wise and going to market at an accurate price, you're going to have less competition on the market. You're going to be fighting for buyers, but there's going to be less buyers actually pulling the trigger in the coming months. So it's always a double-edged sword when it comes to the trends here.
Yeah, so in this market, I think you have to, it's going to take a joint effort between savvy buyers and savvy sellers in order to see success here. Like, we had a couple of conversations last week about people coming in 20% below assessed value from last year's assessed value, but that's not going to be the case. As a savvy seller, you need to be aware and educated on where the market is at and where trends are showing it's going to go, because turning down a number today, you could be looking at an even lower number in the coming months. And then from a buyer's standpoint as well, just coming in and offering something crazy low, it's not necessarily going to guarantee success. And as if they do follow trend, the listings start coming down, that property that you may be interested in or hoping comes down in value, it may just be pulled off of the market anyway. And so it's not even going to be available. So it's going to take a balance of both savvy buyers and savvy sellers to see success, in our opinion.
Yeah, and always remember, success means a transaction takes place. You can go in and you can put offers in all over town. If you're not achieving what you're trying to do, which is actually buy, then always the case is kind of revisit your strategy and adjust, because very clearly a buyer and a seller have to agree to get something done and reach success in any market.
That's it. So guys, we're almost at our 8.5 minutes deadline of before it starts pouring it down. So thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, send your messages to us. Any questions that we can answer, we're happy to do so. Follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook. We are Real Benjamin Robinson.
I am Jay McInnes, or McInnes Marketing on YouTube.
That's it. And we will see you next week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming.
Just singing in the rain, what a glorious feeling.